Kick off tonight. First of all, welcome to Michigan Real Estate Investor Network, hashtag the network. We're really excited that everybody showed up tonight to get together to listen to another great presentation by Blair Clark.
Yes.
How many of you guys have ever been to the meetups before? Okay, so we got one newbie?
I'm a newbie.
Newbie? Okay, you've been. All right, so that's great. No, great to have you all here. Are any of you guys not in our Facebook group? Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Michigan Real Estate Investor Network. It's a big community on the Facebook group. We do a lot of our communications in there and stuff like that. That way, if you want to know what's going on, do any networking, selling houses, buying houses, looking for contractors, anything like that, it's all right there. But tonight we got another great meeting. And we're going to get ready to kick this off, and we're going to get it going. So I would like to introduce tonight's host, Blair Clark.
Yeah.
That was brief. Usually Jeff is a little more long-winded. How are we doing, Dylan? We good?
Keep talking.
All right. So we're doing things a little bit differently tonight. We're going to broadcast this as a live podcast, but I guess we're also, I don't know where this should be, also live into a couple of different social media groups, like Facebook and Instagram and apparently LinkedIn or Insta, Snap, Chatgram, all those different things, wherever the kids are hanging out these days. So anyway, typically the MasterClass forum, the format is a workshop. So we get together, we have an anchor topic that we discuss. And I don't just stand up at the front and talk at you guys, I talk with you. We have a discussion about whatever it is that's going on that can bridge the gap between where you are right now and where you would like to be in your real estate investing endeavors. So tonight, since I'm interviewing the big dog, the cheese, he wanted to do this special event and collect it as a piece of content. So we don't usually have this type of setup. So we're actually going to film this, and I guess he's going to do whatever it is that he's going to do with it later. But the topic tonight is, what is it?
Getting your real estate license.
Thank you. Getting your real estate license, or if you already are licensed, how can you use your license to leverage real estate investing? So that's really what the whole concept is tonight, is if you are already a licensed agent, but you want to venture over into investing, then the topic is for you. But if you are an investor and you would like to merge over into the retail side of investing, this is also for you. But if you are brand new, you're just now getting interested or into real estate investing, then this is also for you as well. So we're just going to cover everything from every angle to the best of our ability in like the next half hour to 45 minutes. Keep talking. All right. So who has their license already? Anybody? Just Jeff?
Halfway there. They have that sort of.
Sort of.
Not sure of its status.
Right on. Yeah, so you might have to get it reinstated. Jump through whatever hoops the state of Michigan requires you to jump through. I don't have no idea what they are, but Dylan would know and would know where to direct you on that one. Yeah, so I recently acquired my real estate license. It took me way too long to get it. I took the course through an online institute, whatever you would want to call it, called realestateexpress.com. And I don't know if I would recommend them or not. I feel like their program was overly complicated, really difficult, and a ton of content. When I went to take the test was much less exhaustive and involving and as what was on realestateexpress.com. And I don't even know if all of the content on that website was even relevant to the state of Michigan. But has anyone else attempted to take the real estate investing coursework, whether you're attending an actual in-person class or are you doing it online, if you've done anything like that? What are you doing, Nate?
Yeah, I'm also taking me a bit, but yeah, it should be done in a couple of weeks.
Who are you going through?
Captain?
What is it called?
Captain?
Captain?
Kaplan.
Kaplan. Gotcha. Okay. Well, how do you like theirs so
I like it a
far?
lot. I did Kaplan with my life insurance license as well, and I really like how they do things, so I really do like it. Like after each unit is always a quick little quiz, and then it's like a big little test, and then after that we take a final exam, like in real time, and then yeah, so I love it. I really recommend that.
Right on. Yeah, that's sort of the format that Real Estate Express was also, except I just felt like they just inundated you with excessive content, and I just couldn't possibly absorb it all. And it was just, I think it made the process a little more stressful. When you first received your license, how did you get your license?
Yeah, I'm a little more old school. I went in person. I took the 40-hour in-person class. Took it through a real estate one.
Okay.
At the time, there was a Groupon that was like being offered. So, yeah, right. So there was a Groupon for the class. I think I paid $99.
Okay.
And it was a one-week class, and you could choose the 40-hour intensive, 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, or you could do it over as much as like 6 months, once a week, and they had different options. But I like the in-person because you got to ask questions, there was a lot of interaction, there was a room full of people that you could interact with and talk to and all of that. And the people that taught it were very familiar with the testing, so it was very geared toward the test.
Yes, fantastic.
So I think at least from a perspective of being successful in passing the test, it was well suited to that. And I passed the first time, so that supports my theory of that.
Right on. There you go.
What was the name of that school again?
It was Real Estate One. The broker, they had a school right in Southfield, and this was.
It's still on.
Yeah, I don't know if they still do their classes there or not.
I think so. I see a lot of people coming and going.
Yeah.
I think if you just go to the state of Michigan, maybe LARA, Lara, which is like Licensing and Regulatory Agency, thank you, don't know the last day. They, I believe, would just have a list of online courses that would qualify, but then also in-person classes also. So I always kick off the MasterClass with like a little bit of a sermon, and I'm not talking about a religious sermon, I'm talking about something that will help you to build your foundation and establish you as whatever it is that you're trying to do, which we're all out here to, I assume, learn more about real estate investing, right? You want to get into investing and you want to be really successful with it, right? We got a brand new investor, just got his first deal under contract today. That's why I'm interviewing him, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I always kick the masterclass off with something a little extra, and usually it's about mindset. And that's what we're going to talk about right now is mindset. So I am not like texting or Facebooking. These are my crib notes because you want me to look at my notes or else I will just be completely disorganized and off track. But mindset is very important as a foundation for whatever it is that you are trying to do. Because if you don't have a solid mindset foundation, it's very easy to get knocked off your square when the little things come, like disappointment or a failure, or even just negative comments from people that you trust and admire who should be supporting you, but they're not. So tonight I want to talk to you about your mindset of who do you listen to? So you want to get into, maybe this is a brand new space for you to get into, but who do you listen to when you're trying to start something new? You want to listen to the people who have the thing that it is that you're trying to acquire, or are doing the thing that you want to do. I blame Jeff, he messed it up.
That's okay.
I don't know if you did or not, Jeff, I'm just blaming you. So you want to listen to the people who have the thing that you want to acquire, or the people who are doing the thing that you want to do. But then there's a second part that people don't necessarily talk to, and it's people who come from a similar background as you as well. So in real estate investing, if you want to be a real estate investor, there's all sorts of people who do it. You don't want to talk to people who aren't investing in real estate or don't know anything about real estate, right? Like if you want to be a chef, you're not going to talk to a high school math teacher, right? You're going to go speak with other chefs, or you might even sit underneath other chefs. But you also want to keep in mind with real estate investing, there are people from all different walks of life. And the people that I suggest that you listen to are people that you can connect to with a similar background, meaning there are going to be very successful real estate investors who come from a very basic, standard American background, lifestyle, which I'm making assumptions, but I assume that's where we all come from, unless we have any elite aristocracy here with us tonight. Do we have any, like, multimillionaires, billionaires in the room? No? Okay. Give it a couple years, exactly. So there are people who are very successful real estate investors because they were handed something, right? They were either handed an inheritance and then they invested their inheritance, or they were handed a portfolio, meaning they were passed down these properties generation to generation. And those are people that you can learn from, but everybody here in the network, this networking group, Michigan Real Estate Investor Network, everyone that we put in front of you are people just like you guys. People who came from just very basic, standard American backgrounds, and we had to work for everything that it is that we have acquired. Nothing was handed to us, right? So who do you listen to? You listen to the people who have what it is that you want, or are doing what it is that you're doing, or come from a similar background of you, so that you can connect with this person and that you can get realistic information. Because somebody who kicked off their real estate investing career with a $10 million inheritance, they're not necessarily going to give you the same path that you might take. Your journey might look a little bit different, right? So all of the presenters through the network, Michigan Real Estate Investor Network, it's no fluff, it's not theory. Everybody is actively out in the field. And like I said, we weren't handed anything. We've all had to build from the ground up. And so this leads me into my introduction to the person to my left, which is Dylan Tanaka, and he is the founder of the network. He's also the creator of the Hybrid Mastermind. He's been an active real estate investor for about 2 decades, 20-ish plus years. And he's also a licensed associate broker with eXp Realty. So I'm not going to go into his story. I'm going to let him tell his own story to you guys tonight. But before, let's give it up for Dylan. Thank you so much. Because this isn't really my meetup. I know that I'm like the face up here talking, but this was founded by Dylan, created by Dylan. Thank you, Dylan.
Sure, but people like Blair better. That's why I put her up here, right?
I mean, it's true.
Yeah, so I guess just piggybacking on what Blair said, you know, I've been real estate for 20 years and almost 20 years, probably like 18 and a half now. And like Henry was talking back there earlier today about property preservation in the old days, and like I rolled right through all that. I started in 03, so in 06 I was there breaking into lock boxes, right? AMN, OCN, I got all the codes memorized still. But real estate changes a lot, right? And there's a lot of things that affect it. You guys see what's going on right now. There's kind of like, you know, some civil unrest going out there in Europe, and we just went through a pandemic, so it's crazy. So with that brings lots of opportunity, though, I think. And for me, just going through all these different cycles that we've been through. Is this what I'm supposed to talk about right now? All the different cycles that we've been through. I think, you know, things have changed in a good way, and now there's a lot more opportunity, I think, that we see as investors. It's just different than it used to be. It used to be we would just make offers on foreclosures and buy as many as we could and then resell them really quickly. I don't even know where I'm supposed to be looking. I'm very confused. But
just look at John Paul. He has beautiful eyes.
There you go. So now, you know, now everything's changed, right? So it's we're in a seller's market, the hottest seller's market basically of all time, for sure, in my lifetime and in my real estate career. But I think it's left a huge opportunity, and I don't know, since 2009, I've been telling people, you guys should have your real estate license if you're going to be an investor, because I think that they go hand in hand. I think there's a lot of opportunity when you have your license and you're an investor, and a lot of times we lose out on deals or opportunities because we don't have our license. So that's why it's something I've always talked about when people would come to, this group started as the RIA of Macomb. So for those of you that are newer to real estate investing, an REIA, it's not like a franchise, but it's Real Estate Investor Association. And we started in Macomb County, but everybody had this mindset who would show up that didn't really know a lot about our group, that you had to be like a Macomb County investor, or you had to live in Macomb County, which was totally wrong. But about a year before the pandemic started, we kind of decided to change the name, make it a little more generic, and that was more for building the Facebook group, so people from around the country or world would know that our group is all about Michigan real estate investing. So it's very plain and boring, the name of the group. So we changed it to Michigan Real Estate Investor Network, but we just call it #the network. But now, we've kind of moved the area that we, or the location that we do our meetings in, and you guys are obviously sitting here live. But, before the pandemic, we were pushing 100 at every single meeting. So we're getting back there, for sure. So that part's exciting, but to me, it's what I've seen throughout all these years is just different opportunities pass me by because I wasn't using my real estate license like I should. And I've been licensed since 2009, so I've been licensed a long time.
Right on. So we're going to dive into the basics of the basics. So in the MasterClass, we don't assume that you're walking in with any sort of information. A lot of times I notice in networking groups, they kick it off at like the intermediate level, and some people, kind of fall through the cracks. So we're just going to spend like a couple of minutes on literally like level 0. What is an agent? But then also, what is a broker? So what's the difference between an agent? What's the difference between a broker? And then how does a person even acquire their real estate license?
Yeah, so question I get all the time is, do I have to work for a broker? Can I just open my own company? I'm just going to get my real estate license. So when you start out as a real estate agent, you have to go through, in Michigan anyways, 40 hours of training. You have to pass a quiz, and then after that you go and pass the state exam. At that point, once you pass that state exam, which for some of us it's hard to do, some of us it's easy to do, but the important thing is that you pass it because you only have to pass it one time. But then once you have your license, you get to pick what broker you want to stick that license underneath, because you have to be under a broker for at least 3 years. And most people are there a little bit longer than that, and you have to do a certain amount of business. But the reason for that is, like Blair recently received her real estate license, so she can't transact real estate as an agent unless she's underneath a broker, because she isn't allowed to do so because she isn't a broker. So as agents, we work for a broker, and that's the company or person who is at risk when we're working with the general public. Because you guys got to remember, if you're flipping, like, who's flipped houses in here? Right, so almost all of us. We flipped houses, we got LLCs, we do all this other stuff. If something goes wrong, who are they coming after? Us, because we screwed up, right? We don't want to screw up, but it does happen. But when you're an agent, who do they come after? They can come after you, but your broker's responsible. And your broker's supposed to be smart enough to know that you're not going to make a mistake, or they're going to help you not make mistakes, right? So they're the ones who are at risk if they're the broker. And like, I'm a broker, but I don't own the brokerage that I'm at. So my broker still protects me if I do something wrong. Now, if you accidentally do something wrong and you're not committing fraud, then you're okay. If you do something really wrong, that's the same thing as shooting somebody. So a crime's a crime. But the important thing is when you get your license and you don't really know anything yet, or like how to do paperwork the right way, how to close deals the right way, how to order title, that's what the mothership is supposed to do for you, is teach you all that stuff so you don't make mistakes. Because again, you're not always working for yourself. A lot of us in this room, that's all we would do. But I work with clients also. So if I screw something up for a client, it could be a big problem. And I can't have that happen. For one, I don't want to get in trouble. For two, I don't want to screw anything up for them financially. And for three, then you get a bad name, and then you're out of business. So that's kind of how it works. You have to go through training. You got to pass a quiz. You got to pass the exam at the state. Then you got to pick a broker and be an agent for at least 3 years. Then once you graduate, you can be a broker. But if you don't want to own your own business and be the owner broker, you don't ever have to get your broker's license. I just think it helps when you talk to people. So if I'm working with private sellers a lot of times, or if I come in to partner with somebody, even though we all know, like, if you're an agent broker, what's the difference? But it just says that you stepped up a level. So I think it helps. It may not be worth all the time, effort, and energy, but it just depends on your own plan.
Yeah, it shows your level of commitment because you've had to, do an extra level, and you did like an extra level. Like you've got some letters at the end of your name. You know what I mean? Like not your doctorate, but
So there's different types of like brokers you can become. You could be like a commercial broker. You can just be a normal broker. But I went through this thing called the GRI, which I would never tell you guys to do this unless you want to be a real broker or realtor. But somebody who I considered a mentor made me basically commit to doing it that way, which is like 3 times more work than becoming a normal broker. And all you guys are like, I don't even know what that means. So did it even matter? But when it matters is if I did, like, let's say that you're not licensed and you're flipping houses and you're like, all right, Dylan, listen, I'll hire you. You can list my flip for me. If I'm going head to head with another agent or broker and they see that I'm a GRI, to real like brokers and agents who that's all they do is retail, they'll see that and know that I took the next level. Again, I don't know how much it helps, but I was taking, like I said, one of my mentors told me to do it, so I listened, and I got it now and I never have to get it again, so it doesn't matter. But
right on. So if we're speaking to 2 different types of people tonight, agents who are thinking about coming into investing or investors who are thinking about becoming agents, there's always like a flip side to everything. There's always a negative. So let's just start with negative and then we'll go into the positive so we can end with the fluffy. But I would assume that there are some negative aspects to having a license as an investor. What would that be?
So in the old days, when I started in the early 2000s, and even before that, I was always interested in real estate and used to talk to my family about it. And none of my family members are real estate agents or big shot business people, but like my uncles, I would hear them talking about it, and they would always like say, if you had a real estate license, it would hurt you when you're dealing with the general public if you're an investor, because the thought process is you're an expert. Well, with YouTube and 1,000 hours in 1 year, you could be more of an expert than 99% of the people in this world in real estate. So the only thing that and this is perfect because it's a like reverse negative. So the only negative part about having your license if you are an investor is you have to disclose. And you have to disclose to the seller if you're or buyer, if you are representing yourself to buy a house, you have to let them know immediately that you have a license. And I've been doing this since day one, so it's super simple. I'm like, hey, Blair, I have my real estate license. I usually don't do a lot of listing and selling. Like, you're not going to see me put the gold jacket on and stick the big sign in the yard. I use it to buy and sell for my own company because in Michigan, legally, we can only buy and sell 5 houses per year. And you're like, I never heard of that. That's crazy. I'm like, right. But we do so much business, I had to get my license. Mm-hmm. So I have my license. And she's like, whatever. Are you going to pay me $100,000 for this house or not?
Right.
So that's like the biggest
Nobody
fear.
cares.
And to me, it's the opposite. It's me telling her, like, we talked about Lara or MI Plus is what they call it now. Go to MI Plus, look me up. You can see I have a broker's license. You can see that it's active. You can see what brokerage I'm with. You can find me if I've done something wrong. Versus if I'm just rolling up in my pickup truck and I'm trying to buy your house at a Starbucks, it just gives you a little bit more credibility. In today's world, everybody's worried, all this identification theft and all that crazy stuff. And like, if any of us have like older grandparents or parents in their 80s or 90s, my grandma's phone rings 10 or 20 times a day, they say, because we can buy lists just like when we market to buy houses, and they're hammering or trying to get her social number every single phone call because they're just trying to steal it. So think about a landlord, like, has anybody bought houses over the phone and never saw the person, like, from another state or anything? Okay, so like Blair has. So if you're going to talk to a landlord in Florida and he's got a couple crappy rentals back here in Michigan, right? And he's like, man, I'm done with Michigan. I'm down in Florida. When you talk to that person, the more credible you seem, the more they're going to be able to trust you, and the more they can look you up and find things out about you. So to me, I think having your license just for that respect is huge. And then there's just so many other weapons that you get with it.
Sure. Let's think about like annoying aspects of having your license as an investor, because you're an investor, you're an entrepreneur, you're this free spirit, you don't want anybody to tell you what to do, but all of a sudden you have this broker who tells you that you have to do things like you've got to come to training and you have to do floor time. Like, what is floor time? Can you elaborate on that? But they don't understand your creative spirit or the creative deals that you want to do, and maybe they even tell you that what you're trying to do is unethical or illegal. And then maybe you don't really connect with the other people at the agency because they're all trying to just list houses or, take average Joe buyer out to buy a house, and they're like, what are you even doing? Like, this is what we all do. So that's been kind of a, not like a fear of mine, but before getting my license and before finding the hybrid mastermind, it was like, I don't really want to go to a brokerage that is going to put me into a box, because I used to be an elementary school teacher and I loved being in my classroom doing my thing. But then when I had to fit certain boxes that didn't really fit what I was trying to do, creatively, it was frustrating. So let's dive more into that. Like, how much has that affected you and what you're trying to do as an investor?
Is it elementary or elementary?
It's elementary.
Right.
Watson.
So, for me, in the beginning, it never affected me because I was always working in small brokerages, or I owned my own with partners.
Okay.
For the simple fact that going way back to the foreclosure boom days, it was just a different way to do business. So once I worked for moved my license under a couple bigger name brokerages, there definitely are different checks and balances, but those checks and balances are there to keep us from getting in trouble, basically. So probably the most annoying thing is, like, one of my company's names is Pretty Michigan Homes, which, back in the day, used to like make or build pretty Michigan homes, right? So
Makes
when
sense.
Dylan Tanaka, the real estate agent, is going to list a house for Pretty Michigan Homes, and even though I'm the sole member of that LLC, so it's only me, I still have to have a listing agreement between PMH and DT, the agent. And then when you write all that stuff up and you list it, you have to go through a few documents. It's really easy, but it can be kind of annoying. But the difference is, if Blair and John Paul are going to flip a house for $250,000, right? So then they're going to list it for $250,000, and they call their buddy Dylan, and I'm going to list it for 6%, right? So typically, I think everybody in the room knows there's usually a buyer's agent and a seller's agent, and each one gets 3%, and then the brokers take their piece. So we're left with this little piece of the pie sometimes. So in that scenario, I'm going to make $7,500. So they're losing $7,500 by hiring me to list the house. So if you're going to rehab houses, you're crazy to hire another investor/agent to list for you. You might as well get your own license, because I'm jumping ahead, but to have your license is a couple $1,000 a year total and total costs. So if you do one deal a year with it, or if you list one house for somebody, or if you buy one house off the MLS, because if you call me and you ask me to list or make an offer for you, I don't care who you are or what it is, I'm not making offers for you, because right now it's not getting accepted. You're not going to offer $20,000-$30,000 over ask. And I'm talking as an investor, not as a homeowner. Mm-hmm. So I have a friend who buys all of his stuff off the MLS, and he's an investor. Pretty impossible, right, Jay? Today, to buy houses off the MLS as an investor. Every deal he buys off the MLS, though. You know why? Because he's a sniper. Because he's his own agent, right? And he's got all his paperwork set up and his purchase agreements and all this other stuff. So when he sees this thing pop up, bam, he makes the offer right away. He calls the listing agent and he's like, hey, I don't want the commission. You can have both sides. Everything's done above board, but his offer's in 30 seconds. So if John Paul calls me, he's like, hey, can you make an offer? I'm like, I'm speaking at this event. I'll do it in the morning. It's gone.
Sure.
Paul or Brenda or somebody else is making that offer. So
that's happened to us before.
Yeah, and it's in today's market, sure, we're not buying a lot of stuff off the MLS. I haven't bought one house off the MLS since 2015. But next year, the year after, next week, who knows? You could be saying the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. Because there are deals out there. You just have to be smart and savvy enough to see them in a different light. And maybe, like, you might be a landlord. You don't have to get the very best deal if you're not trying to wholesale it and make a bunch of money, which I have nothing against, because I wholesale all the time. But if you're a landlord, you can pay more for it because you're going to own it long term,
Well, have you ever had to, like, circumvent the little piddly things like mandatory meetings or mandatory trainings? Or
so
what even is floor time? Like, you literally man the phones or something?
Right. So man or woman the phones, right? So at a lot of brokerages, they have a lot of different rules. And there's 10 zillion different brokerages in this country. But if you're going to be an investor/agent or an agent/investor, whichever side you lean more towards, you got to be with a company that understands what you do. So you can you can sit down with like when I interviewed my broker previous to when I moved, which was like 9 years ago, I went and had lunch with him, which is super annoying to think he's got to have lunch with all these people and bring them to his company. But it was worth it for him with me because we worked a lot together and like I didn't waste his time. But we went and had lunch, and I'm like, okay, number one, can I make offers on HUD houses? This is 9 years ago, right? And he's like, yeah, we're a HUD broker. I'm like, okay, are we on Real Source and Real Comp? Because there's 2 MLSs in Metro Detroit. A lot of us use Real Comp unless we're in like St. Clair County, but they all like aggregate each other's data now, so it's different. But again, I'm going back a decade ago, right? So all I cared about when I talked to this dude was can I get on, both MLSs? Can I make offers on HUDs? Do you care if I flip my own houses? Some brokers would be like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't buy from private sellers. I don't allow it. And it's not against the law, but it's their rule. So
Sure.
like Erica Weichels is back there from Michigan Investment Title. There's title companies that will tell you right now it's against the law to assign contracts. Who in here has assigned a contract before and gotten money? Well, then you're all going to jail, right? We know that that's not true. But that title company, that's how they think. So that's like going to a Range Rover dealership and telling them you want a pickup truck that you're going to put horse manure in. They're like, we don't have those. Like those don't exist. So you got to be with the right company for the right situation. So if you're going to go list multi-million-dollar houses up in Traverse City or something like that, like you might want to be with some little company that everybody knows up there because that's the boutique realtor,
Right.
that real estate company that works up there. But for us normal people who are investors and we're here in Metro Detroit, you got to work with who you're comfortable with, but will follow the rules that you want to put forth, because the game, like some of you guys are employees in here, so we know, not just because of COVID, but because of the opportunities that we have, we're kind of in charge now. So the whole game has changed since the 50s, right? Since after World War II. It's been changing. So now agents are really in charge because the brokers are nothing without the agent. Because if I don't bring Blair and John Paul's deal in, they don't have the deal because they're trying to run a business while I'm out there hustling. So you have to be partnered up with the right company.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to know who it is that you can align yourself with that's going to accentuate your goals, I guess, or align with your goals, which is a good segue into the next section. So we talked about the negatives, which really aren't very negative, which is a good thing. So it means, you know what I mean?
The worst thing is if you defraud somebody or break the law, you can get in more trouble as a realtor.
So do the right thing. So if you are an investor and you don't want to do things ethical and ethically or above board, then getting your license probably isn't for you.
Right.
But if you want to be on the level, then there's So the downsides are pretty minimal. So let's talk about the benefits then. Like, what are the upsides to getting your license? So we already talked about you get to keep a bigger piece of the profit. Meaning when you rehab or you sell or whatever it is that you're doing, if you want to buy and sell your own things, then you get to take more home at the end of the day. And then we talked about if you are able to find a brokerage that aligns with what it is that you want to do, someone that aligns with your own personal goals, it won't even just allow you to do what you want to do personally. You'll probably find other people at that brokerage who also are like-minded, and you can connect with them. And now you've got this little crew of people, and you're all like-minded. Like, you're all trying to be whatever it is that you're trying to do. And what I'm trying to do is be a hybrid, be both an investor and both an agent, right? So we've already talked about that. But let's talk about the control. How one of the things that I am looking forward to now that I have my license is I will have more control over the acquisition and the disposition of a property. So do you want to elaborate on having more control as an investor if you have your license?
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, and even in your own lives, even if you work a 9 to 5 or an 8 to 7, as it probably the truth is, you still want as much control as possible. Mm-hmm. So if you're gonna dip your toe in and never do a real estate deal and you're just feeling it out, then getting your license maybe isn't worth your time. But if you're gonna buy even 1 or 2 houses a year, it's worth having your license because it speeds everything up, and today speed is everything. It's like I said, if you see a deal on the MLS, it's gone. I mean, it's not there 3, 4, 5 days. It really isn't. because it's still a seller's market, and things aren't changing anytime soon. You know, I mean, they're always changing, but all the indicators point, and I hate that stuff, but you have to kind of pay attention. Like, we're almost in spring, right? So we're like, I don't know if spring starts April 1st, but like it's almost April 1st. Like,
March
snow's done.
20th.
Please, no more snow, right?
March 20th.
So yeah, it's March 20th right now.
No,
So
no,
you're
no.
watching this in the future.
That's when spring starts.
Right.
Spring starts March 20th.
So you look at that.
I'm just letting you know when spring starts.
Yeah. No, but you know, so you look at that and you say, what am I supposed to be talking about?
Having more control
Oh,
over
yeah,
your own deal if
having
you're
more
your
control.
own agent.
You got to have it. So this is the story that I tell. So how many of you folks have rehabbed a house, like bought it, fixed it, and sold it? So about, half of us, right? Jeff, he didn't raise his hand. He's still awake back there. But there you go. I'm waking him back up. But so let's say this. Let's say that you're going to rehab a house. You've been going to a RIA group or meetups and learning on YouTube and going to all these Facebook groups, learning. You finally jump in. You buy that house for $100. You're going to sell it for $200, and you got to put $50,000 into it or whatever. So you're getting hard money. You're using private money. You're begging friends and family to do a deal. However the heck you get all that money together, and it's a big deal. For those of us who have done our first deal, that was a big deal when you put that first one together.
Yes.
Because not everyone, but a lot of people told you couldn't do it, you're going to lose money, it's all these other things. So now you do that deal and you're like, I did it. All right, what's next? So when you are standing there and you have that I always say it's like a brand new baby. You got that newborn in your your arms that it took you a year to find the deal. You had to get all these contractors. You had to borrow all this money. You had to make all these promises. You're at risk for all this stuff. You're just going to literally like throw it to Blair and go, here you go, sell it for me.
Yeah.
I hate that idea because when I rehab houses, and I don't rehab a lot right now because I'm doing more new construction, but when I rehab houses, I take a lot of pride in my rehab. So I'm big on, obviously, kitchens and baths, right? So there's a lot of things that I'll do in a kitchen that the agent just isn't going to show them, because when you get your license, and there's people who are licensed, we know nothing about investing. We know nothing about construction. We know nothing about details, because that's not what they teach us. They teach us fair housing so we don't get in trouble. It's really what they teach us, right? So they don't know that there's soft closed doors and drawers, right? They don't know that there's a garbage bin pull-out thingy, and that's 3 times the cost of a normal cabinet. Or if you put in a bank of drawers, it's quadruple the cost of a normal cabinet. And the reason that you want them to know that is because you want them to make illogical decisions and pay more, or the absolute most, because that's your goal as a rehabber, right? So if Blair's a real estate agent and she's like, okay, I knocked the door. What do you think? You want to make an offer? Like, that's what a lot of them do. Nothing against agents. I've been an agent a long time. But again, do you want to put your whole life in someone else's hands? You're already doing it hoping that the buyer's going to come from another agent. But when it comes time to talk to those agents who showed that house, is your agent going to work extra hard or tell them beforehand about all the extra stuff? And in today's market, you don't have to do that as much because it's a seller's market. But there are still deals you actually have to sell because they're just not perfect and you're trying to get more for them than you should. And that's sales, right? That's putting some sizzle on the steak. So again, if you're going to risk all that money and you do your first deal, like Paul did his first deal. Let's give Paul a hand. There you go. So when Paul did his first deal a few months back.
He's a landlord now.
Right. So he bought a rental, but there was a lot that went into that. So he's done things probably that he wouldn't do on the next 5 houses, but he's done extra babysitting because you got to learn so you don't get taken advantage of, because it can just happen just out of sheer ignorance. And it's not like the plumber's trying to screw you out of money, but let's be honest, right? If you don't know what you're talking about and people can smell that, then you better not be playing 3-card money, right, on Fifth Avenue or whatever in New York City against guys. You're going to lose money because you're the sucker. So having your license gives you a lot more power. It gives you a lot more control, and I think it makes I think it makes the other side a little more fearful, if that makes sense. But they know that you're not like a wimp. So it's like if you go back to the playground days, and you know that this kid or this girl beat up this other kid, you're going to be more careful about fighting that kid in the playground. And as an agent, at least they know that you're not just some dummy who just listed the house. I think that it gives you a little bit more defense. And it makes them less apt to try to pull the wool over your eyes, because this whole agent game, it is like a shell game, because the agents who represent buyers and sellers, what do they want to do? Do they want to like get the very best deal and never buy a house for their client? No, they want deals to close because they don't get paid until deals close. So who's going to fight hard for your deal? You know, who's going to, I don't know if you used a management company, Paul, but if you got your first tenant yourself, who's going to look at those applications like you are? You're going to over scrutinize them, right? Because you're in a different mindset than maybe some of the tenants, maybe, possibly, depending what neighborhood. But like, who's a regular management company is like, looks good to me, fill it up, baby. Let's get the first half month's rent and let's go. So it's important that you can watch your own deals, because if you can't, like, no one's out there watching out for you, nobody.
Right, like no one else is going to market your deal like how you're going to market your own deal. It doesn't mean as much to them, even if they're a very well-intending person.
Yeah, it's called moral hazard.
So that's like more control on like the disposition side. So disposition is when you are getting rid of the property, not getting rid of it, but you're selling it. But then the acquisition side, when you are acquiring it, when you're getting the property, one of the big things that I was excited for was MLS access, because I can look for things. The gross majority of the marketing that we do is off market marketing. So I'm trying to look for things that are not on the MLS. But then when I do get a lead, I want to compare that lead to other properties. And so I can do my own little slap together comparison with Zillow and Realtor.com and Redfin and whatever else is out there, Trulia. But that information, I have found information on Zillow and then cross-referenced it with what an agent sent me, and it was incorrect. Not often, but every now and then the numbers on Zillow are not correct. And I've heard that from other people as well, that they've found numbers that were skewed.
Yeah, not everything's reported on Zillow either.
Sure. So what I was excited about also was MLS access. Like now I can get on there and I can actually hunt for my own deals. And if you're looking for deals on websites like Trulia or Zillow, you don't know if they're pending. You know, they don't always post as pending. And then also I can just pull my own comps, and I don't have to bug someone with their license anymore. And it was usually the person that I was partnering with anyway who was going to list the house for me in the end anyway. But still, it's like if I wanted to run comps a couple of times a week, and this person is a busy person, and typically the people that I partnered with were also investors, like they didn't want to do that every time. So I'm excited, or I was excited to have that autonomy as well. And then also you get access to trainings and education, like continued education when you have your license and you're connected with a broker. And so that's a positive as well. So that was sort of like the general info that can be applicable pretty much at any point in time, right? Like basic level, like, you know, what is an agent? How do you get your license? What are the positives? What are the negatives? But let's dive into more of like current affairs. What can we apply to this like crazy pre-apocalyptic, like volatile time that we live in? And I'm not trying to be overly dramatic. I'm just trying to be funny. But nobody's laughing. So maybe it is pre-apocalyptic. I don't know.
It's 900 degrees in there.
Oh, thank you, Fred. It is. Mr. Positivity. But the writing on the wall. So there's some writing on the wall that I really know about, mostly from talking with this guy and other people who have way more experience than I do. So one of the things that we talked about when we were advertising tonight's event is why you may need to have your license if you want to practice real estate in any capacity, not just as an agent, but as an investor. So as Dylan said, you can do up to 5 deals legally in the state of Michigan, and you don't have to have your license per year. But that might go away. So let's talk a little bit more about like government interference, which they like to just call regulation, but.
Yeah. So in 5 states right now, including Oklahoma, Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, and there's another one that just came on. But anyways, they've made it so you can't assign contracts without a real estate license. So any wholesalers in that state has to have a license. And like, you're not going to get in trouble until you get caught. But, you know, eventually you'll get caught, because what happens is every one of us dummies who's a real estate investor, we get a deal, and what do we do with it? We don't like get out the yellow pages and go, hey Jay, I got a deal. You want to buy it? No, what do? We put on 900 websites, and then they're like, oh, really? You don't have a license? And it's other agents who are snitching on people. And that's not going to stop, because snitches don't get stitches in this world anymore, right? So there is
He
no
went there.
justice. There is no street justice anymore. So what has to happen? Come on in. What's up, guys? We'll stop the whole thing for you. Ali, how are you, man? So, yeah, so what's happening is because real estate investing has become so hot, so like just easy to jump into because of the YouTube generation and the seller's market is so hot. What happens is regular people who are selling their house, so like the grandma and grandpa you're trying to buy your house from, a real estate investor who doesn't know what they're doing can be putting those people in peril, meaning like they don't know that they're not going to an attorney for contracts. They don't know anything that they're doing. They don't know which title companies to use, any of that stuff. So, let's pretend Blair's the grandma, right? So I put Blair's house under contract, and Paul was going to come and buy it the next week, but I lock it up, and I'm trying to wholesale it to Jay, but I don't know what I'm doing. Jay thinks my price is too high. I go to the wrong title company, and Paul flies back to Florida, and he's gone, and nobody wants Blair's house anymore because the market changed, or the basement flooded, or the roof caved in. So now she's left with a bad property, and she's going to go cry to who? Nobody. She signed a contract. It's her fault. But now the government is starting to protect private sellers. Just like when I tell friends in other states that we can only sell 3 cars a year in Michigan, right? Unless you jump title. I think it's 3. People are like, what are you talking about? We can flip 50 cars a year here. I'm like, yeah, because you're not
the Motor City, right?
You don't need a dealer's license. You don't need the insurance that a dealer has to carry, which is humongous, right? So they think that that's crazy. But the same thing, huge regulation is already here for real estate investors. And like Oklahoma is a very Republican state. It's right next door to Texas. And they were the first one to make this law happen. So all these investors now who have built their whole life on assigning contracts, which is cool. I'm happy for them. They can't do their business properly anymore. And some of them, maybe they can't get a license because they can't pass the test. Maybe they can't legally get a license. I don't know. I don't care. But it's coming here for sure because we're surrounded right now. Because I don't think it's Indiana, but it is. I think one of the counties in Wisconsin. So it's like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, like they're going to come to Michigan, like, and they're going to say the same thing. We already have rules that other states don't have for real estate. So that stuff is super annoying. But again, when we talk about like, once you have your license and you talk to other people, they're going to put you on they're going to see you at a higher, in a better light probably.
More credibility.
Yeah, it's just more credibility. Even if you don't use your builder's license and you have your builder's license, if I sit down to try to buy that house from Blair and John Paul, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a licensed builder, I'm a licensed real estate broker, I have an office, here's where my office is. They don't know if I'm the owner of the actual office, but they're just like, this guy's the broker. Whoa, cool. I've been in business 20 years. Here's some other stuff that I've done. Here's testimonials. Here's an attorney you can call. Here's the title lady that you can call to see if I actually close my deals. Now, they're all on my side because they're people I do business with, but if Matt walks in and tries to buy that same house from them and he's like, what's up? Here's my purchase agreement. They're like, oh,
Matt doesn't talk like that.
Get this guy out of here. No, he just slides it over with a pen. And they're like, what do we do? So it's huge for us to have that license because for the credibility, but they're going to make it so these people are going to all be snitching on each other if they don't have their license. I know people that do it now. I know people that snitch on other people at my brokerage because they're doing stuff they're not technically supposed to do as licensed realtors. And it's ridiculous because why don't you just make money instead of worrying about what other people are doing? But in this world, we're the ones who tell people, right now, I'm in Florida, I'll be gone for 10 days, I'm on vacation, my house is empty. Dummies, right? Like, I have friends in the nice suburbs who people pull up in a white panel van and they take everything because they put everything on Facebook. So it's your own fault, you know? So I don't think it's funny, but I do think it's funny, Well, and it connects to what you said with everyone can get on YouTube for however many number of hours and just become an expert. So there are probably more loose cannons out there in the investing space now that everyone can just go to YouTube University and I'm going to watch 10 hours of video and now I am a wholesaler. Well, and the best liar wins in the beginning, in short term. Just like if somebody's breaking into one of our houses, literally into our home right now, we're here. We can't stop them this minute. So no matter what you do, you can't stop them, right? The bad guys always win in the short term. Sure. But they lose long term. But you want to minimize that as much as possible, right?
Right. So the regulation might not be so much that they are trying to, squeeze the investor, but more like protect the public, like he just described, from the loose cannons out there. And so, like just the couple of bad apples will spoil the whole, is it barrel? For
Yeah,
everyone else?
You know that picture
or
where they have
patch
that
or whatever
orange
it
that's
is?
got some mold on it on Facebook, and then
Yeah.
all the other oranges get it faster? That's just how it is. you
No,
know?
right on. Yeah, so regulation is coming down the pipeline, but then also the market is just really crazy. And from what I have observed, crazy is not a sustainable lifestyle or way of being. So with this crazy market, I just don't really think it is sustainable. So I know that you don't necessarily like to predict the future. You're not Nostradamus. You can't tell the future. But what are your thoughts on the market right now with how hot everything is? So just to get a little personal. So this is my husband, John Paul, in the front, which is why earlier I said he had beautiful eyes. I'm not trying to pick up some random guy. Just so you know, when you don't come to these with me, I have never told anybody else that their eyes are beautiful.
That's why Matt sits in the front.
Except for Matt. But so personally, John Paul and I are kicking around the idea of not buying another rehab project. We're looking more at holding smaller multifamily. So shameless plug, if you've got a small multifamily and you're thinking about selling it, call me. But we finished up our last couple of rehabs and we got them sold. And I was telling Paul before we started that, we got the record high sale of the neighborhood. And Paul's like, oh, congratulations. And it's like, no. It has nothing to do with us or what we did. Because you see the home that sold right before that was also the record high. And we're not paying attention to what's selling after in the other neighborhood. Whatever sold after us, that was also the new record high. So we got out from underneath our rehabs, I feel like, just in the nick of time, except things are still really holding on. But I don't know how comfortable I feel locking myself into that much risk for the next potential 3 to 9 months. So what are your thoughts on me feeling that way due to the market currently?
I think that you're weak and afraid. No, I think, it's all about...
Sometimes you just got to have someone tell you how it is.
It's all about how, your personal risk tolerance. So, it's like, do you go to the crosswalk or do you run across 16 Mile right now to run across to Panera? It's all the risk you want to take. You might get hit, right? And you don't know the future.
Frogger.
Right, you can play Frogger. So I don't know. I look at it like this. We never know what's happening. So the more cash flow that we can create, the better. So it's really hard to flip to eat, whether you're rehabbing or just wholesaling. And right now we're in a really good market, right? Except it's really hard to find deals.
Yeah.
So the wholesalers are having a hard time. So you're like, okay, landlords, that's fine. It takes a long time to build up that cash flow. That's part of it. But I like to say, like, the biggest mistake that I made in real estate is in 2006 we started this group. And way back then, I still had gray hair, but it wasn't this gray. But we would get, the format was different. So we had about 225 members of the group back then. We'd have about 150, 175 that would show up at every meeting. Because during the foreclosure days, it was crazy, right? So I had a couple different partners throughout my career, and the most deals I ever did in 1 year was like 70 buys and sells, and you couldn't wholesale. Wholesaling was buying, closing, and then reselling, because you can't assign bank contracts. There's sneaky ways to do it. You can't make a business out of it. It's too hard. So I would buy 10 houses 1 month from a bank, right? And I would clean them up minimally, and then I would sell them to, again, Blair and John Paul, and they were going to keep them as rentals, maybe buy it, fix it up, sell it on land contract to their niece, maybe try to rehab it and sell it. It was really hard back then, but you could rehab. So I had all these relationships with all these real estate investors. And when I would sell them the house, especially coming out of the foreclosure boom, which only lasted like 3 years, it just seemed like a long time when you're going through it. But in 2009 and 10, when you could start rehabbing again, I would sell them a house or wholesale them a house. And then they'd be like, hey, we're done with the rehab. Do you want to list it? And I'm like, no, I don't do that, because that was my rule. Like, I didn't list houses for people. Mm-hmm. So I would wholesale them a house for $75, and then they wanted to relist it for 150, and I didn't want to take 3% on 150 because I was like hard-headed. And I was younger back then, and I just had a different plan anyways. And throughout all those years, especially those of us who are like over 20 years old who are in the room, like we start to know people throughout our life, right? And people who trust us. And when you tell people you're a real estate investor, you're getting into real estate investing, they all think that you have your license. They're like, oh, you're a real estate agent. And you're like, no, I have some rental. Paul's like, I'm a landlord. I never said real estate license. Why did you think that? But they just all think that because they're not in the business. So they naturally think that we're a realtor. So in my personal life and from friends, I would say, no, I don't want your business because I don't want to do that. And then from other investors who I was best friends with, all my friends are my only friends are investors. I would say, no, I don't want your business either because I'm a wholesaler and I'm a rehabber and I don't list houses for people, which ends up being the easiest way to make money. So I guess going back to like the economy changing is, I think you have to have a wide business, right? And you have to be able to look at multiple different opportunities and not have what they call shiny object syndrome or trying to chase squirrels in your backyard, right? Because you'll go nuts trying to do it. But if I would have said yes to the Blairs and John Pauls back in 2006, I would have hundreds of investors who call me to list their houses. I wouldn't have to do anything because we had, and I'm not kidding, I can show you the numbers, like it's 10,000 people have been through our seminars through all these years. And like, I just knew, I get all your email addresses. I know you guys, you know, I'm like not the nicest, coolest guy, but I'm okay. I at least got a shot to list your house, right? And I said no to all that stuff. No. And then right before COVID, somebody I do some business with who's out of state was like, you know, we should look at doing this thing. I have this idea, whatever. And I kind of had the same idea. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do this. And he's like, you know all these people, why don't you, you know, in the real estate business, he's like, why don't you just start taking listings or build a little bit of a team underneath you or figure out a way where you could refer what doesn't make sense for you to do, but you could still get a piece of the commission. And they would agree to that, but then start building some residual income. So this kind of happened during COVID, so I wasn't ready to jump on board with it, but right as that slowed down, which was only like a year ago, I mean, in my eyes, it was longer than that, but.
It's like 11 years ago.
Yeah, so like a year and a half ago. So in that time, I started
My
getting
youth
serious
wasted.
again and taking listings from regular people I know and people like you guys in this room who don't have their license yet. Even some licensed investors will have me list because I'll give them a deal, but they'd rather have me do it because my favorite thing to do is not to buy houses. My favorite thing to do is to sell houses. That's my favorite thing to do. So if I had a zillion houses to sell like I did back in the foreclosure days, all you guys were my clients and customers, not as an agent, but just as an investor buddy. Every Saturday we'd meet at one of my wholesales. I got 6 other ones to show you. Like that's what I love to do. And as a wholesaler back then, you make $7,000. It was a lot of money because they were all $50,000 and $60,000 houses, you know. So as a relationship-minded person, I said, I'm not leaving real estate. Like, I'm going to be here forever, and I'm not leaving Metro Detroit anytime soon. So why not worry as much about the economy and say, hey, Blair, you guys don't have your license yet. Like, I'll list your rehabs for you. So like, okay, how does this work? And then we talked. Not like, here's my stuff. But then I started doing that with everybody that I knew, and then people in my normal life, because, again, I'm over 30 now, right? So I know people who are buying houses, and you think like since, 20 years ago for me, if I would have had an open mind and told everyone I know, hey, I'm actually an agent too, and I'm willing to work with you, and I have a team of people, even if I'm not the right guy, because I'm not going to drive you around, Saginaw because it's too far away from me, but I have people up there who I work with. Here's who you should talk to, and I'll help you find the right person. And as someone who's in the biz, and like, even if you guys aren't like experts compared to most people in your family and circle of friends, you are the real estate expert because they're just like, wow, you already know so much, even if you've only done one deal. Like Matt is young, and I pick on him, but he's my friend, so I joke, but even at his young age, compared to a lot of people in his family, and I don't know his family, but I guarantee out of all his cousins, he knows the most out of real estate, blood cousins, because I know his cousin-in-law, who he doesn't know more than, but seriously though, people look to us and they're like, wow. So to me, to be able to sidestep what's going wrong in the economy or what's going right, if you can build up that other side of the business, because people are going to come to you anyways, and you're not always going to find flips, you're not always going to find wholesales. So why not build that secondary business? And if you do it right, or if you do it with the right company, you don't have to do any of the work. You can just refer those people, those clients, to somebody else and still get, a pretty hefty percentage of the commission. And they're going to come to you anyways, because everyone comes to me, my whole family asking me questions, right? And then they don't use me. All my cousins, right, that are younger than me, that I helped raise and I beat the crap out of, and like back then we used to fight in the basement, right? And we'd be wrestling and having fun. But all those kids, they didn't use me, so that's so stupid of me, my own family, because I was like, I don't really want to do that. But then once you open it up, it's like, oh, and let me tell you something. It's who's sold a house as an agent here? Jay has. Anybody else? Kyle has. The easiest way to get paid is to sell somebody else's house and just take a commission. The hardest thing to do is to have that person who trusts you to list that house, right? You got to find that client. But once you do, if they're not crazy and you don't want to take a listing from a crazy person or help them find a house if they're buying, you just put it on the market, you do the right thing, and you work hard, and it sells. You're not borrowing $100,000 from your grandma to flip this house and searching for 6 months and working every night till midnight and painting houses and all this stuff. And you should be doing all that too, but on the side, or on the front, you could do the other side of the business, depending where the market is.
Well, that was the reality check that John Paul and I really had in 2021, is we thought we were so open-minded and broad with our business model, but I realized that we had really pigeonholed ourselves. And the reason why I thought that we were more broad is because in the beginning, we really put ourselves into a box, and then we got out of that box, and then I realized I'm still in a box. It's just slightly bigger with a little more room, so I didn't notice it. But what I mean by that is the market in 2021, like Dylan just said, it became much more difficult for us to find rehabs, because again, like alluding back to the conversation I was having with Paul, another motivation for not flipping a house is also the inability to find one at the right price, right?
Yeah, you guys know rehab means like buy, fix, and flip.
Yeah, so rehabbing a home or flipping a home, those are just going to be synonymous, all right? Same. So flipping a house. So in 2021, there are 3 absolute points in time. There were a few more that were maybes, but there were 3 absolute leads that I had to throw away. And what I mean by that is I said...
Chose to throw away.
Yes. Anyway, Dylan has only been bothering me for 3 years to get my license. I finally did it, so I feel like he can shut up now about it, but he still isn't. He's bringing it up. Anyway, I'm just kidding. Sort of gnarly. So there were at least 3 times in 2021. So what I mean by leads that I threw away or chose to throw away was, we do mostly marketing for off-market deals. So I buy lists, or I create my own, or I have someone else create them for me, and then I send them letters, or I make a phone call, and eventually someone says, yes, I'm interested in selling you the house. And so then you go out on your appointment, and then you make your offer, and then they either accept it or they don't, right? So during this whole period of time, you're building rapport with a person, and it took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, and sometimes it takes a lot of money to even get that person to say, yes, I'm interested in selling the home. You can come out and look at it and make an offer. And so there were at least 3 times. Why are you raising your hand? Oh, hold on. I'm going on like a monologue here. Anyway, there were at least 3 times in 2021 where the people told me point blank to my face, like, I just feel like with the way that the market is right now, if I listed it at full market value, I would get more for the property, and they were absolutely right. And they absolutely did. But what they told me, this is the reason why I know there were at least 3 times, is, I really like you, Blair. If you had your license, I would have you list it. But since you don't, I have to go with someone else. And I'm the one who took all of the time and poured, you know what I mean, like my heart and soul into this lead. John Paul and I, even with one older gentleman, like we went and had like coffee and muffins at his house. And then he had to sell it to somebody else because I didn't have my license. And anyway, that guy like still calls us randomly and talks to us about things anyway, right? So I still have rapport with this person, and I didn't get like a cut of any of it. So if you think about that, the average home that we are listing and selling these days is around like $200,000, because we're in the east side. Macomb County is our market. So if I left 3 $200,000 commissions on the table, and I only take my 3% side. I don't count like the full 6. So that's $18,000, which is not an astronomical amount of money, but like when you live like just in regular, like John Paul teaches high school and I'm a stay-at-home mom, so it's not like we're ballers, right? That's an extra $1,500 a month that would have been.
What's a baller?
I'll have Kyle explain that after he asks his question.
No, not a jogger.
Anyway, so just think about that. Like $18,000. To some people, $18,000 would be like everything. To other people, $18,000 would be nothing.
What I would say is nobody's got 18 G's in their pocket right now, right? Maybe you guys do, but seriously.
So that was a huge motivation of those easily convertible leads. I just had to leave them on the table and walk away. So that was a huge motivation for why I decided to finally get my license, join the Hybrid Mastermind, because it's a brokerage, it's a culture and a team of people that really aligns with what it is that I'm trying to do. Like we all sort of fit the same mold and model. But then also because I don't really want any more doors closed in my face, like, metaphorically, but then also literally. And as I was saying, I just really want to be this like more like a well-rounded real estate entrepreneur, not even necessarily like designated as an investor. I just want to be a real estate entrepreneur and just have whatever opportunity might be available under the umbrella of real estate. I'd like to be able to capitalize on it. So Kyle, you had a question?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll save it till the end. So, no, I'm kidding.
I'll forget about that. Like an appointment with an off-market seller. I just want to get some of your feedback from your experiences. You run your numbers, go in with your ideal offer. There's some negotiation, I would imagine. Do you have a number in the back of your head where you can't go over?
Yes.
Do you ever go back home and rerun numbers?
Yes.
Try to make it work?
Yes. So we have forced a couple of deals in the past, and what that means is we had that it's called your MAO, M-A-O, your maximum allowable offer. And basically it's the 70% rule, right? So that's just something that you can look up and you can YouTube. Like, what's the 70% rule? Like, I gotta be all in at 70% because that extra is like your profit margin, and then also like your oops money, because things always cost more than what they're gonna cost, et cetera. You hold it longer than you think you would. But we have gone over that number a couple of times, and we have made a very solemn vow to never do that again, because when you end up not making very much money or even losing money, it's a huge bummer. But yeah, so we have our maximum allowable offer, and we have made a lot. We made a lot of those offers in 2021, and we had a lot of people tell us thanks but no thanks, and then turn around and sell it, list it and then sell it, because it's a seller's market right now, right? So people who weren't willing to purchase a completely outdated house or a house that needed a decent amount of work in 2019, or maybe even 2020, in 2021, they were like, just get me a house. I got to get out of my parents' basement. I got to get out of this apartment, or like I need to move across country, or whatever it is. They're like, I don't even care. They're convincing themselves like, I'll remodel later. I'll do the work myself. I don't even care. They're convincing themselves to do things that.
Some are paying cash, refining their money out later, borrowing money from their parents or grandparents or wherever. But
did that answer your question?
Crazy.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah,
okay.
If it's not a good deal, it's not a good deal. You
Right.
can't make it work, because if you have dealitis, you're going to lose. Like they say, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. And there was a point where I had a lot of private money, and I was buying stuff that was like slim. And, you're going to lose. Like my worst deal, I lost 50 grand on, and it was really 100 because I had a partner. We lost 100 grand on a deal that was a 7,000 square foot house in Bloomfield Hills, and it was a slam dunk. It was a home run. It was a grand slam. It was all that stuff. And it was negative 50 grand, so.
It happens.
You learn from that stuff,
So I've mentioned a few times, and I think Dylan has too, about the Hybrid Mastermind and why I decided to join it. So I don't want to explain something that is not mine, it's yours. So if you want to just riff a little bit about what is the Hybrid Mastermind? What does that even mean?
So a long time ago, I did a lot of coaching, even, just right here in Metro Detroit, and I wanted to do something similar to that again, but I didn't want to just like come up with some idea and try to, try to sell coaching and charge money and do all that stuff. So instead I came up with this hybrid plan in my head, which is actually the name of it too. But we have a group of real estate investor agents, so that's why we call them hybrids, because it's like a mix, right? And it's a mastermind group, and if you're not familiar with what a mastermind is, basically it's a group of people who all work on a problem or work to solve something or achieve something, together at the same time. So instead of just doing coaching, and like I do some speaking nationwide and all that stuff, but I'm here, like this is my home, this is where I'm at, these are the investors, you guys are the ones I hang out with. So I was kind of playing with different ideas. So what we did is we built out a mastermind, and everybody who's in the real estate brokerage with us is automatically a part of that mastermind for free. But that's even jumping forward. So like on every one of those sheets that I gave you guys, or that you guys got coming in, on the back of it is a QR code. So if you guys shoot that, like, when you go to a restaurant and like you want to look at the menu.
That's your menu now, right?
You guys? So there's an invitation on there. If you guys want to learn more about how to use you don't have to be licensed, how to use a license to do more deals as an investor and vice versa. We do a 6-week academy. It's totally free. I'm never selling anything up here, so I have nothing for sale. But you can go through that. We're starting the next academy starting this Friday, and we do it Fridays at noon on Zoom. And even if you can't make it, it's okay, because some people have real jobs. I get that. But we record everyone, and they're all inside of a private, really small Facebook group.
But you only get it if you sign up for it. Like you're not just gonna, like if you miss the Zoom, that's fine. You'll get the recording later. But if you don't sign up at all, you don't get it at all, right? So it's in this
private Facebook group, and you have to be a part of the Hybrid Academy. But the focus is we do 6, it runs for 6 or 7 weeks, and we basically go from A to Z, like, as an investor, how can you use a license to do more deals? Or a lot of times, like I work with agents who want to just work with investors. There's nobody in this room I think is like that really, but there's agents who know. Like again, back there, Erica, who owns Michigan Investment Title, she built her business on doing title for investors. Nobody wants to deal with us because our deals suck, right? They're probate and they're stinky and they're messed up. So guess what? Who buys the most houses? How many, you guys in the room, like how many homes have you lived in since you're an adult? Maybe 5, maybe 7, that's a lot. Some people 2 or 3. Like I'm not bragging, but I've bought hundreds of properties, right? They all go through that same title company. So it's the same thing. You need to be niche focused if you're going to be an entrepreneur, because if you say, you never want to be in the middle. So you want to be McDonald's or you want to be the most expensive restaurant, because in the middle there's too many choices and you're like, I'm not going there, right? And there's a reason why those 2 restaurants, the little small one that's really expensive, that one gets a line out the door, and that's why people are in line out on 16 Mile Road to go to McDonald's, right? Because it's the cheapest or the most well-known. But it's the same thing when you're a real estate investor. If you don't have some of those weapons at your disposal, then it's just going to cost you money and you're going to lose deals. So we talk a bunch about that, how to really use all the different aspects of your license. Like Blair was talking about, your having access to the MLS. Does anybody in here pay for like PropStream or any of those apps? Yeah. So April, PropStream is how much a month?
Too much.
$99, right? Right. So for like 800 more for the whole year, you'd be a real estate agent. And I guarantee, if you're working with private sellers, that there's a private seller, especially you're nicer than me. So they're going to go, April, we would just like Blair, we would just have you list this thing, but I can't sell it for this cheap. Mm-hmm. And in this market, that's what happens. So you're like, boom, get out of my life. I just wasted all my time with you. I set the ball on the tee. Now Dylan, the annoying agent, comes in and I'm like, I'll just list it for you. Because like we get that spark going in them. Like I said, that guy down in Florida who's got a couple rentals, and he's like, I should just get rid of this crap. They're worth 3 times what I bought them for now, right? And then they're like, I'll just list it. So we spend a lot of time talking about that stuff. So if you guys want to join into that thing, like I said, there's no sales pitch. It's a 6-week program. If you miss the Zooms, we post them all on a small private Facebook group. Half the people in this room are already in the group, but it's just a way for us to like get a little bit deeper and talk specifically about the power of using your license as an investor. And we just, we go through a bunch of different scenarios and talk about how to do more deals, really.
Yeah, it's just expanded education on literally what we talked about tonight and then more, because there's only so much that you can plug into, a 45-minute, hour-long conversation at one meetup a month, right? So this is just an opportunity
And
to...
we don't talk about this stuff all the time because every month we can't talk about, like, you should have a license. Like, it
Yeah,
gets
there has to
annoying,
be
right?
another,
So
next
last-
month will be another topic. But
Yeah, last month we had a panel up here, right? And it was cool. And it wasn't about using your license. It was Blair and Jay Jones, who's not here, but they were talking about, and it was going to be Jeff. Luckily, he's here tonight, but he had surgery. He's okay now. He had a lobotomy. He doesn't remember. But no, he had his knee worked on, but he was going to be up here too. So we're talking about our first year in real estate. So that's super cool. But we didn't talk about licensing or any of that stuff.
Right.
So that's why we do that as a totally separate, almost like a subgroup, because so many investors now, and the best investors that you know or that you meet, they have their license or their spouse does or somebody in their company does, because you can't not. Like, how many people have their license in here again? None of you guys do? Jay does. He's got a broken wing. So like a third, and like Nays in class, she just talked about that at Kaplan. Blair doesn't know the name of all these schools.
I don't know how to pronounce words.
Matt's getting his license, but it just opens up a lot of. April's getting her license, or she just has a question.
I am.
Right.
How much is it to get your license and for the upkeep every year?
So Michigan's one of the cheapest states to do it in, believe it or not, which is cool, I guess. But so when you go to school, you have to go and take the. So I'll do like the first year because that's the most expensive. So you can sign up for a $99 school, or you can sign up for a $299 school and go in person, like all the old guys like me and Jay and Jeff. We all passed the first time though, right? Yeah. See? So we went in person. You sit there for 40 hours, and it's like. You're like, I'm going to learn how to, nope, you learn nothing that you wanted to learn. So that's like $300 a lot of times to sit there in a class. Online, you can do it for $99. Then every time you take your test is 80-ish?
I think it was like 75.
Yeah, so $80, $75, take your test.
I would think that this year, less than $1,500 for this year for me to do it. Yeah. With
then you
the
have to be a part of
education
a
and the
board.
testing, and then paying for the MLS, and then paying for the board. There's dues, right? They're providing, exactly, right.
It's under $2,000.
Right. So to put it into perspective, I racked up $60,000 in student loan debt for a bachelor's degree that I'm not even using anymore because they paid me such a minuscule amount. Sure. Or $1,500-ish, and not even that. I'm absolutely rounding up. I'm just thinking of like it was $600, but not that much to join the association, and it's
And
like
it's just a huge weapon. to
40-ish
have.
bucks a month for MLS. So you're paying $99 a month for PropStream.
But I did.
MLS access was like $42 a month. So
Yeah, something like that. It's like $500 a year. But like, Jeff's listing a house in Howell, wherever that is, on Wednesday. We have to go out there, right? And
the
like,
sticks.
that's his friend, is a buddy of his. And like 2 years ago, Jeff was licensed, but we weren't thinking this way. Now, I don't know if it's going to be 170 grand, whatever.
270.
I'm sorry, 270. So, and we're going to give him a deal because that's what you do. So at 1.5 or 2%, because he's a private friend, and that's your choice. But 270 times 2, that's $5,400. We're going to be gone 4 hours. And like, the guy loves Jeff. And like, Jeff's been quiet tonight, but Jeff's the coolest person in the whole room. So like, it's so easy. It's just silly because people are going to come to you and be like Paul, I don't know if any of your family has said to you, like, what's the deal? Like, your cousins or friends or whatever have asked you any real estate questions, or if anyone's buying or selling a house, and they've said to you, can you point me in the right direction, or do you know anybody, or are you licensed? Right. So even if it's one, you could have went like this. I know a lady. She talks a lot, but she's nice, and you could talk to her, and it's Blair. And if you had your license legally, and like, there's a lot of illegal things that happen in the world, but we're talking all the legal stuff right now. So you could have sent your cousin to Blair and listed his 300 house and went and bought his 500 house. So that would have been $800,000 in commissions times 3%, 24 grand. You could have earned or 33% of that if you were licensed and just handed her off. Because here's the crazy thing that we didn't talk about. Most agents don't know, as real estate investors, we know how to market better than almost anybody in the world, because who would have ever thought that I can buy a list and I can figure out how long you've lived there, and I can skip trace you, and I can get every one of your email addresses, and I can find out that you're not owner occupied, that you're out of state, that your mortgage is going to adjust at this time. We have so much data available to us that's public record, right? So
It's a little alarming.
real estate agents aren't taught any of that stuff. They're like, here, start cold calling, right, and get us listing appointments.
Go knock on doors.
Right. Or talk to your friends and family and make a list, which all that stuff works, but we know how to actually target and market people. And you don't just shotgun, like if you shotgun mail a whole sub and say, I want to buy your house, no offense, but you're wasting money. You need to market to people who have some type of an indicator saying that they might sell. Like they're non-owner occupied, they live out of state, they're back on taxes 3 years, stack all those together, and they're in probate, right? And they have code violations. Imagine those people. They got a lot of problems. They need us, right? So the average agent doesn't know how to do that. So legally, a real estate agent who gets referred a deal from a mortgage person can't give that guy a kickback because there's RESPA. So they want to protect, if Matt's buying a house and John Paul's his agent and sends him to Blair, the mortgage person, these two can't like give each other money. They're not supposed to. Or like Erica, the title person, can't kick Blair back cash and go, thanks for the closing, girl, here you go. Because we need to protect the actual buyer, Matt, who's just like, I just trust all these people. And they're crushing them at a high rate and all this other stuff and extra fees. So that's what RESPA's for. So what RESPA says is, I can't give Paul a kickback if he sends me his cousin for that $600,000 house. Now, are they going to know? Probably not, but it's hard to build a business on that, right? To where Paul's like, yeah, I'm a Muslim. Everybody knows me. Like, he might be the king of all his people. I don't know. They might all come to Paul and go, what do we do? Because you know real estate better than everybody. And he's like, I have my license, but I have a real job, so I can't drive you goofballs around because this is a crazy market, but I'm going to hand you over to Blair, to Dylan, or to Matt, or to Jeff, or whoever the right person is, and you make that choice on who that person is, because you're going to hand your friend or family to them. But if you're licensed, you can ask for any percentage of the commission you want. It's legal. So agents are super sucky and useless at marketing, most of them, except for the great ones. So the typical agent right now is giving up 50% commission for listings and 25% for buyers. They're out of their minds. I would never give half my deal up for private money. I won't do it. I won't do the deal because I'll just borrow the money at a rate, right? I'm not giving up half because I've graduated past that, and I never did that because I was told not to. So as an agent, why the heck would I give up half my money? That's totally nuts. But they only make money by listing houses, and they don't know how to get in front of the right people because they weren't taught. Because who knows direct marketing like we do as real estate investors? Nobody knows that stuff. It's hard to know that, but that's all we concentrate on is finding off-market deals, because on-market deals most times are crappy. And again, 10 years from now it might flip because it could be a foreclosure boom again. But right now your best deals do not come from the MLS typically. They come from, hey, my neighbor is a hoarder and his wife just moved out. I think they're getting divorced. And you're like, really? What's their number, right? You don't even need it. You just need the address, and you'll skip trace it. You'll send them a letter. You'll door knock. You'll do whatever you got to do, right?
Does that make sense, what he just said? So basically, if you are too busy and you don't want to list or whatever for somebody, you just kick it to somebody else who does.
Right, and you can make a huge
But you
amount of
can
money
still
doing that if you're known
get a
as the
piece
real
of that.
estate person. And like Blair's talking to these probate people, and if you don't know what probate is, it's when somebody dies intestate, and they don't have their affairs in order properly, which is a lot of people, and they don't have a will, which wills don't work necessarily either, or an estate plan. So the counties publish lists of those people because it's public record. So they're like, we'll use me. Dylan died, but they don't tell you nothing about Dylan. They used to say if he had property and all this stuff. So Blair's like, And then Matt's my attorney, and Matt has to go and be my personal rep down at the county, and they're going to advertise that Dylan died, and if he has any creditors, they have 6 weeks to step forward, or 3 weeks, or whatever it is. I think it's 6 weeks, right? So I owe Harley Davidson, and I owe Art Van, it wouldn't be Art Van anymore, and I owe Visa, and I owe this, that, or the other, or I have no debts. So then I have this house that Blair's trying to buy, And Matt's the personal rep for me, and my brother is my heir, right? And Matt's like, all right, listen, Dylan died, and you get all the money. What do you want to do? This Blair lady wants to buy the house. Matt's not really involved, but he's like, talk to this lady because she keeps mailing me because I'm the personal rep. Well, in that situation, my brother's going to go, Dylan's house is really nice. Yeah, it's like grandma's house. He needs new carpet and windows or, a bathroom and kitchen, but it's mortgageable. It's in good shape. Like, you can go in there and live if you clean it up. Why would he sell that to her or me or you guys for cash if they can just list it and it's still going to be gone in 45 days for 20, 30, 50 more grand, right? So that happens all the time. In that case, Blair threw those deals away, and I've thrown away more than her, but she threw those deals away last year. Those are 3 people not really begging her, but begging her to list their house. So what if every time as an investor, when you're sitting there, you give them a menu? So like when you go to a restaurant, unless you go to a really nice restaurant, when you go to a restaurant, they give you this menu. If you go to like a Greek restaurant, they might have like 20 pages. They got Italian food, they got Chinese food. You're like,
Yes.
we got what else we got on this menu? You're like, wait a minute, what do you specialize in? But if you go to a nice restaurant, a normal one, $20 dinner, there's going to be choices because you're not just going to walk in and they're like, you're only getting this, right? So the problem is if you don't have those options for sellers and you walk in there, even if you're trying to buy from another investor, but if you don't say, here's multiple ways that I could buy your house. I could, and we don't want to list it. We want to buy it and we want to flip it or we want to buy it and wholesale it. But like I dealt with a lady who had a daughter with this debilitating disease. It was terrible. She was like a 20-year-old kid. She had to move to Arizona and because of the weather out there, right? So this house is in Royal Oak. Is anyone ever going to have a hard time wholesaling or flipping a house in Royal Oak? No, right? So I sat with them and I'm like, I could buy this and probably make 10 on a wholesale. So I said, listen, I can probably make you like 20 more grand if you let me list it, but you got to let me list it at like full price. So I made half, but I listed it and I made them more money. So I was willing to take half a paycheck because it was the right thing to do. But how do I know that 5 seconds later, Blair didn't show up at that same house and just offer to list it? But I knew with that person, it was the right thing. So I still made 5 grand and I was there for minutes, you know what I mean? Compared to the 5 grand. And that today is happening a lot more than before because like this room, right now, every single person in this room, if you're licensed like Kyle is back there, he only comes here because he's drooling like, I want to list houses for all these investors, right? But seriously, if he made the right, if he made the right conversation with you, he has a shot to list your house. He invests too, but you guys understand what I'm saying. Like, there's rooms full of people like us who are just sitting here and like, we're opportunities. So the same thing happens when you're talking to private sellers. If you don't give them multiple options, they're just going to go. And today, everyone is smarter than they used to be, even if they're not, because they have a smartphone and they can ask that question. And all you got to do is ask Google, right? And there's just so many options out there. And it's really just about, if people know you're in real estate, in my opinion, if people know you're in real estate, I think you're crazy not to have your license because your friends and family alone are going to come to you and be like, what should I do, or can you help me? And you're just going to help them for free. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you want to give them to me instead? Or would you rather list at their house? Because don't you trust yourself more than you trust me? You should, Or you refer it to me and you're like, hey, I'm going to, kill you if you mess up my cousin's house, right? And don't sell it for a lot of money. But since I'm bringing this to you, I would like to get part of the commission. How does that work?
Oh, right on. Basically, the theme of tonight's discussion is the goal at the end of this is to be a more well-rounded real estate entrepreneur, right? So when you're first getting into real estate investing, I am not saying tackle all sorts of different strategies. Just pick one that is for you, tackle that strategy, take it down, and then go after another. And so what I mean by that is maybe the first deal that you do is you'll buy a rental property, and then maybe you'll try flipping a house, and then maybe you'll try wholesaling a deal, and then maybe you'll even, now that you've acquired some capital, maybe now you'll even be a passive private money lender, or maybe even an active private money lender, like you both partner on the deal. But the point is the goal is to be more well-rounded. You don't want to be a one-trick pony, especially in this volatile market that we've seen the last couple of years. If you only have one stream of income, you can be crushed, right? And it doesn't have to be a bunch of different random streams of income, right? Like you do this job and then you do this job that has nothing to do with it. Everything that I pursue is under the umbrella of real estate, and getting my real estate license just opened up another stream of income to me, right? So that's really the goal, is as you progress in this real estate investing endeavor, just focus on being really well-rounded so that you can open up as many opportunities to you, because that's really what you're trying to do, is you're trying to build a sustainable business, right? Because if you're just chasing after that one method, that one model, that one way of leveraging properties, but then the market shifts on you, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to be, you know, left in it, right?
Moving no matter what.
Right.
I mean, that's why McDonald's sells spicy chicken sandwiches. You think those compare to Popeyes or to Chick-fil-A? No, but people are buying them, so McDonald's has them available.
Or the McRib, which might not have been the best business model, right? So we're going to stop talking and we're going to open the floor up for questions now. So if you have anything that you want to fire off at Dylan J, I do see your hand. But this is now, the floor is open. We're done yakking at you.
I just had a final comment. In your situation, when you talked about, you know, moving away from focusing on flips and doing other stuff, having your license, in my opinion, it gives you additional, not only additional acquisition strategies, it also gives you additional disposition strategies.
Oh, yeah.
Now you're not just thinking, okay, I'm buying this house to flip. You have the ability to say, okay, I'm gonna buy this house, maybe I'll rent it, maybe I'll flip it, maybe there won't be enough meat left on the bone for me to flip it and make a decent amount, so I'm just gonna retail it.
Yep.
And so it gives you more.
I've wholesaled many houses through agents to their clients and ran it all through the brokerage because they looked at it differently, because I approached it different, and they're like, ooh, this is off market, because I knew I was gonna buy it. And sometimes you had to double close or whatever, but I have a super awesome strategy for that, because the other agents are so hungry, and especially if they're investor-focused agents like we are, they represent investors, then I thought she was taking a picture of me that close. I'm like, whoa.
No.
But yeah, it's totally true, what Jay said.
Right on. Who else has a question? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Blair got a letter in the mail from Keller Williams today trying to poach her.
I'm leaving you. This is how we're telling you. I'm just kidding.
I know this is a huge question, but like, so is Hybrid Mastermind a brokerage? And if so, like, how is it similar or different than other brokerages?
That is a good question.
Yeah.
I've never actually explained to him what it is that we're doing.
So, no, so what we did is we basically built the Hybrid Mastermind on top of the platform that eXp Realty gives us. And there's multiple different reasons for that. Number one is they're a nationwide brokerage. Number two, it's not corporate owned, it's agent owned, and they're very investor friendly. And a lot of investors are, you know, they get they get a shock when they go to certain brokerages because they're not investor friendly. They'll tell you that up front, but then in the back they're like, you know. So it took me about 4 years to make the decision to move, just because I was comfortable where I was at. But I decided to basically build the mastermind with somebody out of Dallas, and even though like I'm the guy here and I'm the person that you know, and like there's a whole app that we have everything inside of, and there's deal coaching and a whole community, but it took a long time to pick the right brokerage for me to partner with, because I wanted to build something, but it's like, why? It's like, we can, like, I can build my own electric car, but why not buy a Tesla? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just crazy, because why try to reinvent the wheel when there was something already there, and then I can just stop and hit the ground running. So so that's the way that we did it, and we did it that way specifically because the people who I partnered with are the biggest investor agents in the entire company, you know, so it just made a lot of sense.
So eXp is the brokerage, but the Hybrid Mastermind is something completely unique that you came up with, not your nationwide guys.
Right.
Like they were talking and you.
Prepares you to be a real estate agent?
No, it's more, kind of all the above, but it's more for when you already have your license. So instead of me saying, listen, I want to be a real estate coach.
How to be a killer out in the market.
I'm going to charge $1,000 a month. I do real estate coaching. We do Zooms. We do all this stuff, and you can come to the masterminds and nationwide coaching and all this. I don't want to do all that stuff. So I said, how can I put something else together? Because I like coaching. I like doing that stuff, but I want it to be deal coaching. So it's not like, here's what, kind of what we talked about in the beginning. Here's what an agent is. Here's what a broker is, or here's how to fill out your paperwork. I didn't want to have to do any of that. So the reason that I decided to partner with EXP to do it is because they have a whole online training system, and it's not just like online. There's people, and it's all done through what's called like truly the metaverse, and there's a whole world inside.
It's very state of the art.
It's
very impressive.
So it's totally crazy and different. But to me, I don't want to. I can't deal with the support of Blair's like, how do you write up this purchase agreement? That's not what I'm there to do, because I'm not even the broker on record, right? I don't own it. So she can go online, or she can. There's a couple different ways to do it. Talk to a broker and get help for that. But there's actual training. So you don't want help. Like you don't want to put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. You want to dodge the bullet. So you want to know how to write your contracts up, and you want to know how this works, and all the different things that work. And that's the right way to get that like normal, boring real estate agent support was from that.
Do we have to sign up if we don't have our license yet, or no?
Well, that's what the academy's for. So it teaches you a whole bunch of stuff in the academy. So then, to be a true like hybrid agent, you kind of have to have your license,
The academy preps you for post-licensing. So it would be like, before you get your license or as you're working on it, it just kind of preps you and sets you up. And then the mastermind is an extra layer of education. So pretty much any brokerage is going to provide you with education, but this is like an extra layer of education and coaching that Dylan created. Like, and he didn't have to, but you created this extra layer to give people more
and inside the academy,
autonomy.
We talk more about all that stuff too. We get deeper into it.
Yeah. But I just feel like it makes you better prepared.
Thank you very much for the information. Just have one question. What is the difference between online training programs and in-person? Which one would you recommend?
When you get your license, when you're training to get your license, like going through I think it's what your style of learning. So when I did it, it was a long time ago. So some people I know would prefer to do it online because they don't have time. This is what I tell people to do. I say do it online, and then you go and pay $50 or $100 to like what they call like a cram session, and you go to some real estate school for a 4-hour like study session on Monday or on Friday or whatever it is, and then the next day you go and take your test. Because once you pass the test, you never have to know that stuff again. But if you have a hard time concentrating and learning, not that I have an easy time, but it was a long time ago, so I took the whole week off work and I went there, because I was already a full-time investor. So it was like work for me anyways, but you sit there for 8 hours a day for 5 days. So if you can do that, that's cool. Or once you start training, you have a whole year to finish it, so some schools will let you come Tuesday night for 2 hours, Wednesday night for 2 hours. You gotta do 40 hours. You gotta go 20 times. So if you just take the class online, then you just have to pass the test. But it's easy for me to say because I've been doing it for so long.
It sort of depends on your lifestyle along with your learning style. So for me, being a stay-at-home mom, I couldn't take a whole week off from my kids. You know what I mean? Like I could have set that up, but that just seemed like kind of a pain, and why would I do it? And that's not really my learning style anyway, to just cram for a week. So taking it online at my own pace, like during nap time, for me.
It just depends how much time you have. If you have lots of time, you can go and sit in the room.
Yep.
You don't learn anything that's going to help you make money. It's literally just like law. It's very boring, very, 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 very boring. So you just have to. Kyle, how many times did you take the test?
I took it once.
Both you guys.
I went in person to the ones that.
Yeah. So and Kyle's smart. So
When I did the online and took it once and passed, so it just kind of depends.
yeah, it just depends. I would never sit there and do the whole thing, but I think if you pay, there's a bunch of different schools, east side, west side, whatever. You can go and pay $50 or $100 after you take the online class through a separate company and sit there for 4 hours, and this lady tells you everything that's on the test. and but when you go and take the test the next day in Southfield, you got to get everything, you got to remember, you know, because there's probably like 1,600 questions, and there's 10 different ways to ask one question. There's 160 or 80 questions, whatever it is.
124
120, yeah. So.
specifically. Any other questions?
Yeah, like April, just to piggyback a little bit on like what you were talking about, because you're going to leave here one day. Not the Earth. I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah.
So.
I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 years. So that's
Oh, it's that long? Okay, I thought you were talking sooner than that. But you're looking in Florida now, like you're trying to invest up and down the coast.
I did end up getting a condo down there.
Good.
Well, then you need to talk to Brenda, because that's the market she's trying to
But
break into.
But the company that we built this on top of is nationwide, so that's the cool thing. So if you're doing stuff in Michigan, let's say that you got some clients here over a 3-year period, and then you went and moved to Florida full time or wherever it's going to be. Because is your husband retiring or no?
Yes.
So you're pretty much going to know where you're going to stay. But you could still do business here, because you could have April Jr., who's Blair, on your team. It doesn't have to be like the structured team and all that stuff, but you're like, hey, girlfriend, like I'm down in Florida full time. I still have clients. Do you want to work them with me? Let's split it like this. So I know guys and gals around the country who do that because they move, or they just have connections. And like the younger people for sure, or military people, but like the world is flatter to them more than ever. So you can live in a lot of different places and you can still
That
work.
was my hesitancy.
Yeah, so it's cool for you because you guys know people all around the world.
Yeah.
So I mean, honestly, like if like you guys have these Facebook groups now and stuff, it's probably different than like 20 years, 30 years ago. You could be that real estate lady. People could come to you for Arizona, and you can be like, let me find you the right person. And then you go to that person in Arizona, and you're like, hey, Arizona Blair, I got a buyer for you, or I have a listing for you. I'm looking for a 25% referral fee. I know people that do that nationwide.
Licensed in that state, so if you move to Florida, you may have to go retake.
Well,
the test.
yeah,
But you can still be part of the mastermind.
Right. But right now, I can make commissions in Florida or Arizona. I just have to do it through another agent who's with the same company as me. I just refer them the deal. But if you're going to go practice full time, then practice? You talking about practice? Nobody gets my joke?
What movie?
No, it's from Allen Iverson. It's a long time ago. But if you're going to practice in multiple states, then it's worth getting a license. And a lot of people, you know, anybody from our side of the country, everybody goes to Florida to vacations. There's a lot of people who have Florida real estate licenses. There ain't no houses in Florida under 300 grand.
Oh, I know.
So that's 9,000 every single time. Yeah, so if you had had your license here, you could have had Blair in Florida working for you down there, and you could have been like, I want a piece of that commission back too. I mean, that's like petty, but if you're doing a lot of deals, it's not petty.
Adds up.
Yeah, right? You know what I mean? So it's like, you know, if you saved $1,000 on 300 deals, it's $300,000. It's real money.
Yeah.
Kyle had a question.
Kyle.
Yeah, so you and Jeff, you want to see Jeff's play, right? Yeah. You're listening?
Are you talking to me? I'm just breaking this down while we're talking because they're going to throw us out in some way.